98FM's Dublin Talks with Adrian Kennedy. Weekdays from 10 a.m. on 98FM.
New research by 123.ie surveyed 3,500 motorists, and it found not good reading for cyclists, it has to be said. 59% of motorists are uneasy when they see a cyclist. 71% believe cyclists don't obey the rules of the road and regularly commit offences on our roads. 81% said cyclists regularly break traffic lights. 84% feel cyclists weave in and out of traffic. And 71% say they've experienced cyclists with no lights at night. Kieran Ryan is the spokesperson for the Dublin cycling campaign. Kieran, welcome to 98FM.
Thanks, Adrian.
Kieran, certainly from a motorist's point of view, that doesn't make good reading for cyclists.
No, but I suppose we have to keep in mind the context of the survey and where it's coming from. So as you mentioned, it's a survey by 123.ie, which is a car insurance company. They've called it the Great Irish Car Review. But, I mean, this isn't the Central Statistics Office. It's not the Department of Transport.
No, of course not, no.
It's not the Gardaí. So essentially we have to remember that this is a marketing ploy by a car insurance company. And what's interesting is that they've chosen...
Well, that would be to suggest that they've in any way fiddled the data. This was a survey of 3,500 people.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting the data is fiddled, but what I'm saying is that it's a car insurance company. It's a marketing ploy, and they've chosen to highlight cycling statistics because they feel that it will generate a reaction, and obviously it has. Your show has picked up on the survey, but it is a marketing ploy.
Okay, these are the opinions of motorists from this survey of 3,500 people, by the way, which is a very sizable survey by anyone's measure. 71% of motorists believe that cyclists don't obey the rules of the road and regularly commit offences on our roads. What do you say to that?
Yeah, again, before we get into it too much, you kind of have to wonder what the question was. Is it that they believe some cyclists don't obey the rules of the road? Is it that they believe all cyclists as a group don't obey the rules of the road? Is it that they saw a person breaking the rules of the road on a bicycle, so therefore all cyclists break the rules of the road? So to say 71% believe cyclists do not obey the rules of the road, it's a meaningless statistic. I don't think anyone who is a statistician or into data would listen to that, but it does generate headlines, and it does make people sit back and go, wow, that's a mad statistic.
Okay, whatever way you want to paint this and whatever way you want to look at it, all of the statistics would suggest, or all of the results of this survey would suggest that motorists have a problem with cyclists. Whatever way you want to paint this.
I agree that there is a perception issue around cycling, that people perceive cycling to be kind of an antisocial thing or not the norm. And there is a perception problem with cycling. We're aware that there's a perception problem with cycling. However, I think little things such as this survey, which presents the cycling statistics as the headline thing, when there's plenty of stuff in there about mobile phone use by drivers and drivers misbehaving, that when we present surveys like this in this way, I think it kind of reinforces any kind of prejudice or bias that people might have against cyclists. So we just have to be a little bit responsible about how we discuss cycling and how we present surveys like this. And like I said, I believe this is a marketing company using the cycling angle because it's a hot topic. It'll generate text, tweets. I'm sure your board is lighting up there. And
already, yes.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. And that's always the way. But at the heart of it, there are issues of road safety and there are issues of investment in infrastructure. So if we could talk a little bit about road safety and interactions between drivers and cyclists, I really appreciate it. And if we can talk about infrastructure as well, because at the core of this whole issue...
it's at the core of the issue of some of the extraordinarily poor behaviour that we see by cyclists in terms of obeying the rules of the road and stuff like that. I only saw it...
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I only saw it myself this morning. This morning, a guy flew right past me on his bike and went right through a set of red lights and almost knocked down a pedestrian crossing the road. He didn't even notice the red light. Now, that was only this morning.
Yeah.
But do you not want to talk about stuff like that?
No, we can talk about it till the cows come home, and plenty of people are happy to text and tweet into you and say that they saw someone else do something similar. I mean, if you want my anecdote, I'll tell you that I don't believe anyone stops for amber lights when they're driving anymore. In fact, I believe a lot of people think that amber lights need to speed up, and it used to be up until recently used to be that maybe one or two drivers would go through a red light when it turned red. But now we're getting to the stage where there's 4, 5, 6 drivers who are driving through red lights. So we can trade anecdotes.
Okay, I would actually agree with a lot of what you just said, and I wouldn't disagree with that. But the fact of the matter is that when it comes to talking about cyclists, we are, and I'm sure it's not just this radio station, we are flooded with complaints about the bad behaviour of cyclists. How do you, as a spokesperson for the Dublin cycling campaign, balance that? This isn't about inciting hatred against cyclists. This is about having a debate to try and get cyclists to behave on the roads.
Well, if it is a debate about that, then we do have to talk about infrastructure and we do have to talk about road safety. But, I mean, there is an issue where the media now do see cycling as such a hot topic that it is clickbait, which generates text tweets, it generates interest in radio shows and newspapers and online articles, and that means money for those media outlets. So there has to be a balance between responsibility and how we discuss the topic, and also how we exploit it for gain. But look, I will talk about infrastructure now, because it is a core issue in this whole argument. And what I wanted to talk about is really how we design our infrastructure for everybody, because we're actually missing a link in how we design our infrastructure here in this country. So I'll just talk about the Netherlands briefly, and they're decades ahead of us in terms of their transport in general, in terms of their public transport, their trams, their buses, their road networks. They actually have a higher level of car ownership than Ireland, but they're also best known as a cycling nation. And what the Dutch did back in the 70s when they started to tackle the issue of cycling and road safety, what they did was they looked at what types of traffic there were, and they said there are 3 speeds of traffic. There are 3 types of traffic. So there are pedestrians, there are slow traffic. So slow traffic would primarily be people on bicycles, but it also takes into account people who might be on skateboards, or people who are on mobility scooters, or in electric wheelchairs, or on skates or whatever it is. So that's slow traffic. And then they said there's fast traffic, which is primarily motor traffic. And they said there are 3 modes, and those 3 modes have to be each given their own individual space, because they can't interact with each other. And that is the main principle that we should be coming from in terms of infrastructure. Now, I would agree with you. Sorry, I just have to finish that. I have to finish that because it's important to bring that back to the Irish context.
Yeah, very quickly, please.
We have those the 3 types of transport. We have pedestrians, we have slow traffic, bicycles, we have fast traffic, motor vehicles. We do not have dedicated infrastructure for the slow traffic, for bicycles, for mobility scooters, for electric wheelchairs. So what we end up with is people who are cycling, or people on wheelchairs, or people on mobility scooters, are constantly vying for their own space, but they don't have it. So when they go into, let's say, car territory, which is general road traffic, that agrees drivers, and drivers think, get out of my space, this is my space. When those people, the slow traffic, go onto footpaths, then we get they're cycling on footpaths, or people are using up space on footpaths. So we are completely missing one whole level of infrastructure, which is infrastructure for slow traffic. And that is that is a core issue.
Again, I wouldn't disagree with a lot of what you've just said. I've been in countries like the Netherlands, which have incredible infrastructure where it comes to cyclists. Unlike here, we do have some infrastructure, but it's certainly not anything of the standard that they have there.
And just to mention,
Kieran,
just in that survey, in that 123.ie marketing survey, it says that 88% of motorists say that they want more cycle lanes. So that's 80 to 8% of motorists want. I can tell you, 100% of cyclists want more cycle lanes.
Okay, I want to get your reaction to the very first message that I got in from a guy called Paul, and he says, "Hi Adrian, cyclists, I hate them with a passion. I'm only surprised more are not killed on our roads. They are total nuisance and lawbreakers. What do you say to that? Which is the overriding opinion that comes out of that survey as well. It is the overriding opinion that is coming into us on our switch.
That people hate cyclists with a passion.
Yep.
That's terrible. I don't think that's what that survey says at all. That survey says people have an impression that cyclists break the law, but it doesn't say that people hate cyclists with a passion.
Okay, maybe not hate them with a passion. But Paul, you are that person who hates them with a passion.
Absolutely, Adrian.
Why?
You should get a hobby.
They're total anarchists. Listening to that gentleman there, you think they had shining halos cycling around Dublin City all day. I drive around Dublin City all day. I drive up Talbot Street at least 8, 9, 10 times a day. I have to dodge at least 4 or 5 cyclists each time cycling the wrong way down Talbot Street. And I'm supposed to be, careful and show respect to these people who have no respect for nobody. They've no respect for themselves. They've no respect for other road users. They've no respect for pedestrians. I had a lady in my car one day taking her out to the rehabilitation hospital out in Dunleary. She was going in for rehabilitation from a broken hip that she got at the crossing at the Spire. She had a green man, and lo and behold, who knocked her down? Only Mr. Cyclist, who got on his bike and cycled away and left the lady there with a broken hip.
Okay, now one of the arguments that I will hear from Kieran, I know before I even put this to him, is that we possibly all have a story. Okay, but that doesn't mean it is fair to brand all cyclists in the same way.
See, at least I'm driving around 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, and I would say 90% of cyclists are total and utter anarchists. They have no respect for nobody, no respect for nothing, and these are the people who are crying out, respect us, respect us. I will show them as little respect as possible because they show me no respect.
Eugene, you're on 98FM. Hello, Eugene.
Hello, Adrian. The problem is I had 3 near misses in the Rathmines area, Dublin, which is notorious in the morning. It's a black spot in Dublin for cyclists. And one was nearly fatal.
And one was nearly fatal?
One was nearly fatal, yeah. A woman on a bicycle. When I was crossing the road, the green man came up and she jumped the lights and she went straight on. She was moments away of hitting me, If she did hit me, I think it would have killed me because I have a bit of a heart condition.
So you've what condition, sorry, Eugene?
I have a bit of a heart condition, and
right.
If it did hit me, I think I would have been a goner,
So 3 near misses from cyclists in 1 week?
Not in 1 week, no, in the course of a while, in the course of about a month or so.
Right, okay. Kieran, 3 near misses from cyclists for a man with a disability in a month. That's not just one incident, that's several.
Yeah, it is. Just to go back to your previous caller, I assume he was a taxi driver there, Paul, was it? I have to say, I think it's a bit irresponsible to be bringing on someone like that who is inciting not just prejudice towards cyclists, but kind of an outright hate towards cyclists. Someone who's a professional driver who's on the roads. He says he's on the roads 60 hours a week. I don't think a professional driver is supposed to be on the road that long. But it's bordering on dangerous to have someone coming on expressing that level of vitriol.
Sorry, Kieran, I'm as likely to allow a caller on the air to say they can't stand taxi drivers with a passion because of the way they weave out of traffic and pick up fares and everything else. So stop being so precious. I would allow somebody to say the exact same thing about a taxi driver.
No, the reason I'm being precious, Adrian, is that life is precious, if you want to put it that way. But you don't have to hate cyclists or disrespect cyclists to put them in danger. You only have to be indifferent to them and not give them due.
But he didn't say he mows them down.
No, he's undermining their value as road users. And if that mentality seeps into other people, we're into really dangerous territory where we're kind of dehumanizing people simply because... Well,
Kieran, I'm a firm believer in freedom of speech. If that is that guy's opinion, that's his opinion. I would equally allow, as I said, somebody on to say, can't stand taxi drivers, they think they own the road.
Yeah, well then please just then let me counter it by appealing to everyone's better nature that, cyclists are not against you. Cyclists are just for themselves.
Okay, all right, no, you've countered that. Now, what about Eugene? Rathmines, man with a disability, 3 times in a month he has an incident with a cyclist, one which, Eugene, you said could have left you for dead.
Could have left me for dead. It was in the Rathmines Road near the Swan Centre, and I was crossing the road, and she came out of nowhere, and she was inches away, moments away of knocking me down.
Okay, Kieran, I have to ask this question: why do so many cyclists, and you can talk about infrastructure and everything else, but traffic lights are traffic lights, even if they're on bicycle lanes? Why do so many motorists just blatantly ignore the red light of the traffic lights?
I think that was a Freudian slip there, Adrian, but you said, why do so many motorists blatantly ignore red lights?
So many cyclists,
I think the Freudian slip is apt because everyone is breaking the rules of the road.
Okay, motorists, okay? I agree with you. Sorry, I've already agreed with you about the orange light, about the amber light. Motorists tend not to go flying through red lights. Cyclists do.
No, motorists do. Motorists do go through red lights, and they go through them at speed, and we see it regularly.
Kieran, if we had motorists going through red lights at the frequency with which cyclists go through red lights, we would have
people would be getting killed.
We would have carnage. We would have carnage on our streets.
There is carnage on our streets. We've had multiple pedestrians killed already this year, all hit by motor vehicles. That is the reality.
Okay, Kieran, I asked you a straight question, and I don't want you to twist the question. I want you to answer this question, which is, why do so many cyclists blatantly ignore, I see it every day of the week, ignore the red light of the traffic lights?
They blatantly ignore traffic lights for the same reason that everyone else who blatantly ignores traffic lights does.
I'm sorry, that's not a good enough...
Because they can get away with it.
No. Hang on. I drive around Dublin every day of the week, okay? And whilst I will accept I might go through orange lights, I never drive through a red light, and the vast majority of motorists don't drive through red lights. Cyclists do, and you still haven't answered my question.
I did answer your question. I said it's the same mentality that drives people to break red lights in their cars is the same mentality that drives people to break red lights on their bicycles. It's because they can get away with it. It's because they're inconvenienced. It's because they're not patient. It's the same mentality, and it's just that people on bicycles can go through it without much effect on anyone else, bar anecdotes.
Bar Eugene.
Nearly getting hit by bicycles. But I'm telling you, it's the same mentality.
These aren't anecdotes. These are actual stories.
These are anecdote is a story. I'm not saying that anecdote doesn't mean it's not true. An anecdote just means it's a story that someone tells from their own opinion. Now, what I will say is that the Garda Traffic Corps, which is now the road policing unit, that unit is completely under-resourced. Now, I'm not letting them off the hook, but I know that they're supposed to be at about 1,200 members at full strength. That's what the recommended strength of that Garda Traffic Corps is.
Yes, I know it is. And it is under-resourced.
And as far as I know, they had fewer than 700 members in the road policing unit by the end of last year. Now, they've recruited a few more since then. But they're still massively, massively under-resourced. We need more road policing in general for everyone, for drivers, for cyclists, for pedestrians if you want, not that they're doing any harm. But
stay there. I've only 1 minute left. I've only 1 minute left on the show. Joe, you wanted to get in on this quickly. What do you want to say?
When did you want to answer a question? You ask him. Very simple thing,
I've answered every question.
Every cyclist should charge them €5, give them a number plate, and then see how they go. See will they start obeying the rules.
Okay, Joey, you've heard Kieran argue that motorists break the rules just as frequently.
Yeah, but give them... Motorists have a number plate on their back, on front. Give the cyclists a number plate. Make them register a bike at €5, give them a number plate, and
then you could at least send a fine in the post.
Yeah.
Okay, and Susan, very quickly, what did you want to say?
I just think that to wholesome everything that's going on, basically there's no real strong rules put in place for cyclists. They break the rules every day, all week. There's kids going through red lights.
You heard Kieran saying that the motorists break the rules as well. Although I take the point of our last caller, Joe, that at least there's some comeback on a motorist who goes through a red light. If a guard sees him, he can take down his reg. Anyway, look, I'm way out of time. Kieran Ryan, spokesperson for the Dublin Cycling Campaign, thank you very much indeed for joining us on 98FM.
98FM's Dublin Talks with Adrian Kennedy. Weekdays from 10 a.m. on 98FM.